Well, let me start by saying good morning. I was a little settled there for a minute because on cue, but I didn't exactly know what the cue was. So let me start by saying good morning. We will begin with our land statement. Land grant institution, the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, has a responsibility to acknowledge the historical context in which it exists. In order to remind ourselves and our community, we will begin this event with the following statement. We are currently on the lands of the Peoria, the Kaskaskia, the Piankashaw, the Wea, the Miami, the Mascoutin, the Odawa, the Sauk, Meskwaki, Kickapoo, Potawatomi, and Ojibwe and Chickasaw nations. It is necessary for us to acknowledge these tribal nations and for us to work with them as we move forward as an institution. Over the next 150 years, we will be a vibrant community inclusive of all of our differences, with Native people at the core of our efforts. Let me start. Good afternoon. I guess it is technically afternoon now. Welcome to this annual conversation with our senior leadership team. And as I hope most of you have figured out by now, that this event is somewhat of a counterpart to our annual fall State of the University address. The goal today is really quite simple. We hope that we can engage in a free-flowing conversation with my leadership team and myself. And on the stage today, I am deeply honored to have my colleagues that I work very closely with each and every day, starting to my immediate right here, Interim Provost Bill Barnhart, the Vice Chancellor for Research and Innovation, Susan Martinez, Vice Chancellor for Advancement, Barry Benson, the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, Danita Brown-Young, the Vice Chancellor for Administration and Operations, Mike DiLorenzo, and the Executive Associate Chancellor for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Gio Guerrero Perez, sitting in for Vice Chancellor Garrett today. And I just want to emphasize that Vice Chancellor Garrett is just not missing in action. He's actually filling in for me on a panel at the Hillel International Campus Summit that is being held in North Carolina today. And so he's serving on a panel in my stead where we're engaging with Hillel and other universities and other organizations to discuss the opportunities and the challenges around anti-Semitism and how we all need to work to eradicate that on our campus and how we build a more inclusive campus community. So Sean has a pass today for not being here. Our graduate dean, of course, Wojtek Chodzko-Zajko, will be moderating today's event and will certainly do his best to keep us on task and to keep us on track. And I just want to stress that we really do want this to be a chance for us to really answer some questions there from the general audience. There are some questions that have been posed that Wojtek is going to pose on the front end. But we think it's most informative and most beneficial when we leave enough time for you to pose questions that we can respond to the things that are at the top of your mind and hopefully respond in the most thoughtful way possible. We think that, I hope you would agree that it's hopefully would be somewhat informative to get a sense for how we operate as a team. I wouldn't go so far as to paraphrase the Abraham Lincoln book. We're not a team of rivals necessarily, but I can tell you we don't always agree, and part of the process of dialoguing, discussing issues, and coming to some mutual understanding about how we move forward, to me is one of the most beneficial and the most rewarding part of the process of working as a part of this team. Not everyone is going to see everything and every decision we make in the same way, but we certainly work very hard to make sure that that when we do arrive at that decision, everyone has confidence that we will align behind that decision, and that decision only results out of deep, appropriate, respectful dialogue and conversation and consultation with every group that makes up this great university, including our faculty, our staff, and our students. So all of us really do work as a team, and I'm very, very pleased with that. And together, we're responsible for the administrative leadership and the direction of this public land-grant university. And when it comes to making decisions about our current operations or our ambitions, all of us are involved in each and every one of those decisions. So we believe you should have the chance to hear from all of us about those decisions as we move forward in expanding and executing each academic year. The ground rules for today are pretty straightforward, so let me explain briefly how the program will work today so that you will know what to expect from Wojtek and from us that are on the stage today. After my opening remarks here, I will turn the podium over to Wojtek to guide the conversation, and he'll start with a couple of questions to get the conversation going, and then he'll move on to present some of your questions. As I said, that is critically important. And we thank, again, all of you for coming out to the research park end of the campus. I know my colleagues at the research park were extremely excited about having this conversation here today, and I thank so many of you for taking time out to drive down. I think very few of you maybe walked over, but we thank you for making the effort. And so Wojtek will also draw from some questions that have been submitted in advance and by those of you that are in it, and as well as those of you that are in the audience. And for those of you attending in person, you can also write and submit your questions on cards. We have them around the room, and you can pass them to the appropriate question, the appropriate person. And we will certainly try to make sure we have time to entertain as many of those questions as possible. These questions will be collected throughout the event in mass, and then passed on to Wojtek to be able to try to get your question in the queue. And we will certainly try to get through as many as possible, but I hope that that these conversations really do serve to give you a better idea of where we stand, where this university is going, what are the critical issues that are facing us each and every day. And I hope today is just a spark of a starting point for more detailed public discussions and more strategic approaches to how we move forward as a university. So with that, I will turn the program over to the moderator. Wojtek, the con is yours. Thank you very much. I appreciate you all being here.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. The first question we have is for the whole panel, and we're going to start with Chancellor Jones. And the question is, we've spent this year developing the foundation for our next strategic plan, Boldly Illinois. From the perspective of your office, can you tell us in 2 minutes or so what kind of bold initiative or idea you think will be central to our university over the lifetime of this new plan?
Wojtek, I thought this was not going to be a non-hostile conversation, but you're starting out in a very hostile territory trying to limit me to 2 minutes, but I'll do my best. You know, the strategic planning process, and I've been around higher education for, I'll just tell you, about 45 years now. And it's very rewarding to be at a place where strategic planning isn't done just for planning or for the purposes of saying, well, we did a strategic plan. It really is a roadmap by which we have guided this university, and I can only talk about the 7 years that I've been here. It is the framework that really guides each and every one of our decisions, and the framework provides an opportunity for us to think about where we're going, how do we acquire and accumulate the resources to finance that great vision, and how do we collectively move the institution forward. So last time under Andreas Escangalera's leadership, we decided to call it the Next 150, which I thought was a big, bold framework for a strategic plan. I haven't been part of a university that stepped out and framed one in that bold way. But I think if you go back and look at each of the frameworks of that plan, we have followed it just like it's a roadmap. So our strategic planning process is a roadmap and a path for the future. Given where we are now, and given all of the challenges that we faced, and given how we've been able to implement that next 150 strategy, and there's still some work to be done on some elements, we decided, and Bill will tell you more about this Boldly Illinois strategy is really just the next iteration. It's the next phase of that initial plan, where we are going to be really stepping up the plate and move things along in a very strategic way. And just to really get to the core of the question, the biggest thing that I'm so excited about is building on the vision. How do we keep equity, diversity, and inclusion, access, and affordability at the top of our minds? Because that is the thing that we've spent a lot of time advancing. But also there are some opportunities to think out of the box regarding things like operational excellence, for example, that came out of the whole process. How do we implement that? How do we take it to the next level? Because we're at a point in time where we have to continue to fight for the resources from the state and from other federal agencies, but we also have to better manage the resources that we have. We've got to do more with less. I hate that expression, but it's true. And we've got to really add more effectiveness and efficiency in our operation, because I can tell you the analysis is very clear. There are many things that we do. There are far too many transactions. There's far too many times where multiple individuals have to touch a piece of paper, and I have issue, but we got to move beyond paper at some point. I'm sure the digital scientists in the room would appreciate that. There's far too many touches for one transaction, and I see my Associate Vice Chancellor for Human Resources out there, who is, Sherry, is helping us to think about how do we do it scale across the human resources enterprise. But we also have to think about this in the broader context of our three-part mission as well. We've just got to do a better job of managing our resources, be best in class in how we manage and operate the university, just as we're best in class in terms of the research and innovation. So I'm excited about continuing to address access and affordability, excited about some of the work that you're going to be hearing about on health innovation, and all the things that we're doing in this Boldly Illinois strategy. It's just very exciting to see where we are, the progress that we've made, and how we're going to be pushing ourselves to go even further in the next 5 years. I failed. You can give me any help.
Yeah, you did. Bill. Go ahead, Bill.
I think the Chancellor covered everything. So, you know, what I'm excited about when I think about Boldly Illinois, and there's a lot going on and a lot to be excited, but when I think about this, I'm excited about putting interdisciplinary teaching and learning out there as a goal for our campus. I think we live in a time, particularly, you know, coming out of the pandemic, where we recognize that solutions to societal problems require us to address them from multiple angles. Our students recognize this, employers recognize this, and I think our faculty recognize this. And I think we are in a position to do something about that. Now, cynics, and I know there are some cynics out there among you, will say, you know, Bill, we've mentioned interdisciplinary teaching and learning every strategic plan that we've ever had. What's going to be different this time? And I think this time, you know, in past years, we've made big efforts to kick something off centrally, top down, pull people together, and work through it that way. And you know, we think back to the Grand Challenge learning scheme that we had about a decade ago. You know, that was a wonderful program for the students in it. It was enormously expensive and impossible to do at scale. So what we want to do with this plan, I think, is create the conditions where interdisciplinary teaching and learning can come from the bottom up, where we can create and provide, you know, sort of transcriptable non-degree credentials, I think, that will help students see, you know, have incentives to take these courses and be involved. We can do more to remove some of the administrative obstacles for departments and colleges that want to partner and work together to create these opportunities. And I think we can take advantage of some of the technological innovation in the classroom to help bring together people more easily across boundaries. So I'm excited about the progress we're going to make. I don't see it's not going to be a big moment where we kick this off, but by creating, I think, a fertile field where 1,000 flowers can bloom, then in 5 or 7 years, the course offerings that we have are going to look a lot different than we have now.
Thank you. Barry.
Yeah, thanks, Wojtek. Absolutely thrilled to be here, but I'm especially excited that Mike is in this chair. Susan has some sharp elbows, and so for the last 5 years, this side of my arm has been very sore after this experience. But nonetheless, I'm going to echo a few of the words that Bill had mentioned and ask you to use your imagination here for 2 seconds and envision an Excel spreadsheet. I talk with our team a lot about columns and rows, and we have been wildly successful operating in our columns. And what I mean by that is I look out and I see deans and various other leadership here, both in the audience and on stage, that have excelled in raising money for colleges and units. Right? I think the opportunity as we move forward exists in the rows, right, that are being helped defined by the new strategic plans, and those are more cause-based, more thematic, i.e. the environment, healthcare, innovation, entrepreneurship, some of these common threads that all of us can embrace and make an impact in, I think is really where the connective tissue aligns between our fundraising efforts and the new strategic plan. So Wojtek, that's where I really see the opportunity as we begin to, or further, amplify this framework here and provide some opportunities for additional engagement with our constituents.
Thank you. Mike.
Now I know why my elbow's so sore. You didn't warn me. I jump on something the Chancellor said, and that's stewarding our resources. Most of the units that report up through me, we're here to support you doing your research and doing your teaching. And so we need to work to break down the barriers. That's why I'm co-chairing with Vicki the Operational Excellence Initiative that the Chancellor referenced. We need to do a better job and break down those barriers for you to be able to do your job. And I know it's tough. The state of Illinois is very tough to do any type of transaction in, and so all of our units are working hard to make that better. But I think operational excellence really provides us an opportunity to really look at what we're doing and provide more efficiencies. It's going to take us a little bit to get there, but then allow you to do your job is much better.
Thank you. From a research perspective, Susan.
Sure. Well, thanks, Wojtek. First of all, for those of you who participated in the research summit a couple of weeks ago, there was a recurring theme in that we need to be louder, much louder. Louder about our accomplishments, louder about our potential, louder about our aspirations. So Chancellor, no more Midwest modest in the boldly Illinois. As far as what we want to pursue on research, Steve Bopart, who is leading the Interdisciplinary Health Science Institute, along with Craig Wagenknecht, have been working on a health visioning plan at the Chancellor's request. You're going to see that soon. That will fold into our Boldly in Illinois strategic plan. We'll also be launching a climate resiliency, predictability, and thrivability plan. And I've been working with Bill Bernhardt on that, as well as Madhu Khanna over the Institute for Sustainability, Energy, and the Environment, as well as Praveen Kumar, who oversees the Prairie Research Institute. National security and economic development are really important in ways that leaves no one behind as we develop our communities locally, at the state, and also at the nation. So, thank you.
Thank you. Gio.
Yes, good afternoon, buenas tardes. Thank you for inviting me to be here. As we continue working towards increasing the diversity of our students, staff, and faculty, we acknowledge that there are challenges out there. There are structural and systemic. However, our goal from the perspective of our office, what we need to focus a lot is increasing access to education at Illinois. We understand that there are barriers, but working collaboratively with many of the units, the colleges, and our partners, identifying those and engaging in conversations and programs such as Student Success Initiative. And from our perspective, for example, the Illinois Scholars Program is a program that provides students experience during the summer for 4 weeks. In the first 4 years, the Chancellor of the institution has providing all the funding for that particular program. Recently, in collaboration with Student Affairs and the Provost Office, we were able to get more funding for our summer program. And that is going to provide access to our students to be here earlier, particularly for students who are underrepresented from low-sending counties. And we are happy to say that this incoming summer, we have been able to open the program to students from 9 academic units. In the past, it used to be 2 academic units. We are now engaging with 9 academic units. And we hope that the students who come here over the summer, that they get the experience, the necessary skills to be ready for the fall semester. So that is one of the areas that we believe that throughout our next strategic plan, we need to concentrate in creating that increasing access to students, at Illinois.
Very good. Danita.
All right. Well, thank you for having us here today. In Student Affairs, we are charged with creating and supporting students in the outside the classroom experience, and that is every student. That is all 56,000 plus and counting, not just one specific academic college. And so when we're thinking about these big, bold plans of how we help our students thrive and not just survive on campus, we are partnering with members of the Provost Office, Technology Services, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion to create what we're calling maybe a student success hub. And with that student success hub, it would help our students learn more about the student affairs services and the many support services that our colleagues offer across campus that would help cut down on some of the confusion, the frustrations that our students talk about, because our campus is so large and we are very decentralized. I know that's not a surprise to most of you, but creating a centralized space that will help our students be successful in the long run. And that space could have, advising for academic advising, support of our international students, financial aid, just a whole myriad of support services for our students so that they can be successful.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to turn to our second question for all of the panelists. And this time we'll start with you, Danita, and we'll go down the row. And the question is, there are a lot of challenges and issues on the national higher education landscape right now. Again, from the perspective of your office, which of these keeps you awake at night in terms of its implications for our university?
Mm-hmm. I would say student basic needs and student and staff mental health, right, when we're thinking about our team. So we're looking at the cost of tuition and housing and everything that goes into having a living learning experience. And if students do not have their basic needs met, meaning housing or food or childcare, mental health services, transportation, then they're not going to be able to focus and study in the classroom. And so making sure that we are addressing the basic needs of our students is going to be critical to addressing and, again, achieving that student success for our students. And also the student, and I say staff mental health because we are concerned about how our students and our team members and faculty show up on this campus, what type of support they are having. We know that the pandemic kind of exacerbated a lot of these issues. And so what type of resources are we having? How are we being flexible? How are we giving grace, as we've talked about within student affairs, are giving regular amounts of compassion and empathy. That is what we strive to do on a regular basis, and to really make sure that people feel safe and that their mental health needs are taken care of.
Thank you. Gio, what keeps you up at night?
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Okay. Ooh, this is a challenge.
You had to streamline.
Oh my goodness. So as you are aware, our office is responsible for fulfilling the university's mandated compliance responsibility when it comes to Title IX, ADA, EEO, and so forth. That is what I could see there. It carries a lot of weight for the office and our staff. In conversation with Sean, we went back and forth in terms of what are the things that keep us up at night. And one of the issues that we have seen that interestingly is becoming really difficult to achieve is to bring people together, to have conversations. And how do we become a robust, a diverse, inclusive, accessible, equitable institution? How do we do that? So answer those questions for us is very important. We understand that our students, staff, and faculty, they come from all corners of the state, all corners of the county, the state, the nation, and the world. And individuals who come here, they bring their set of values, their beliefs, their experiences, their expectation, and their personal ideas. And they don't live those things when they come to Illinois. So working together as an institution to try to bring them and have conversation, it's very difficult. We want to foster public discourse. But at the same time, we understand that as an institution with a long history, 150 years, we have been dealing with these issues, and we have been able to address and advance many of them. Important to also recognize that sometimes when we bring people together, there are moments in which there are situations in which some actions or beliefs or values might harm others. And that actually makes it more difficult as well. So recognizing that that exists, how complex those things are, how we can model for our students, staff, and faculty, having those conversations that are difficult. At the beginning, Chancellor Jones in his remark mentioned that. So for us that keep us at night, we want to make sure that our entire campus community, as well as our community as stakeholders, understand that we see them, that we value them, that we care for them, and that we are creating mechanisms as much as we can with our partnership with our colleagues across campus to open those spaces for students, staff, and faculty, and their families, because they are also part of that experience, come together, have some, even if there are differences, and coming together and try to resolve some of those issues. We have done that. I think it's possible to do it, but it's becoming harder and harder, and that keeps us up at night.
Thank you. Susan.
I really just want to say email. That's what we do at late at night, right? Everyone in my office is laughing. No, but what keeps me up at night, I'm going to put a little spin on this, is opportunity. This is a once in a generational time where there's so much federal funding that we could capitalize upon to make the world better. We haven't seen this since the federal investment in the Manhattan Project, or landing on the moon, or sequencing the human genome. It's once in a generation time. We at Illinois have the capacity and the ability to really change the world with these kinds of investments. So what keeps me up at night is thinking how we can get the right people rowing in the same direction. We have a great interdisciplinary campus, working through our institutes to bring people together, but also our external stakeholders. We can't do this by ourselves. We need our private sector partners, we need the government, we need the nonprofit, we need people that work on workforce development, and we need diversity, equity, and inclusion for the Justice 40, so no one's left behind in this.
Thank you. Mike.
So what keeps me up at night is, people forget that we're a city. We run 24/7. People live here, they eat here, they work here. And so anything that happens that breaks that down, campus safety with what's going on in the country right now, infrastructure problems, steam breaks, whatever it might be that impacts our ability to do what we do here is what worries me. But probably campus safety is the biggest one. The chief and I and her team are working hard on this with the system and the chancellor to look at everything that we do and look at all of our policies and trainings and so forth. But that's what keeps me up at night, the chief calling me.
And I think that everybody appreciates the efforts that the campus is putting into keeping everybody safe and secure. Barry.
It's a great question. And in addition to sharp elbows, I think Susan has spies, because you stole my notes and my thunder, and I thought separating one chair might prevent that. But really it's opportunity. We've been wildly successful in terms of our alumni and engagement efforts, or I'm sorry, our fundraising efforts here in Urbana-Champaign, and I see my colleague at the foundation, both system-wide, and so really the opportunity to engage and amplify our message, I think, will be critical here as we move forward. I see Dean Brown in the audience. He and I were just sharing some research that's being done in the giving space, and I want to share a particular component there regarding donor behavior. And so we're seeing more donor behavior that's more cause-based and thematic, and the want and the need to make an impact, in addition to that emotional or that nostalgic response that we've leaned into for really the last decades here. And so as Illinois, we are particularly competitive in this space, right? And based on the expertise in this room and elsewhere around campus, I think we've got a very compelling message to share in a number of themes across the country and really the world. I think the challenge is creating a platform and really emphasizing our communication methods, right? And really concentrating on communications and marketing and really sharing some of the compelling stories we have on campus with others.
Thank you. Bill?
So what keeps me up at night? I'm the interim, nothing.
Okay. Very good, Bill. Chancellor Jones?
So let me kind of pick up on some themes that Gio talked about, and a related just a story. So I have a friend on campus, and this friend and I, she and I disagree about everything. Sports, politics, the university, data, theory, methodology, everything. And getting together with her is it's just constant back and forth, and I have learned so much from those disagreements. I've learned to appreciate where she's coming from, her values, her perspectives, and I've learned so much about myself, and having to defend my positions and understanding more deeply what I believe and why I believe that, and it really has enriched my life. It's made me a better person and a better scholar and a better administrator. So a couple of years ago, we were going out to lunch. So I went over to her office to meet her, and she was finishing up with a student, and I waited outside, and she waved me in, and I came in, and she immediately introduced me to her student and said, "This is my good friend Bill Bernhardt, who has a wrong-headed and inane opinion about topic X." And I had to defend myself. So I went back, and little jabs back and forth, and I'm watching the student as we start talking, and the student's confused, and then perplexed, and then kind of horrified. And the student says, there's a pause, and the student says, "Wait a minute, I don't get this. How can you two be such good friends if you disagree?" And think about that. Think about that statement. Think about what's lost if you have to agree all the time. And that to me, that is something that keeps me awake at night. How do we as a campus, how do we as in higher education, how do we teach people to disagree productively? How do we convince them to come at disagreement with curiosity, with patience, with humility, with grace? And how do we do this in a political culture and media environment that values none of those things? It really is important, and I think we have in higher education a responsibility to take that on, to help people understand and build those sorts of connections. Because if we don't, we're going to be seen as part of the problem, as part of the disagreements, and we'll lose even more trust and faith from the public. So that's what keeps me up at night. Thank you.
Chancellor Jones, what keeps you up at night?
Well, I used to say, thanks to Ambien, nothing keeps me up at night. But I don't take Ambien anymore. So I guess the point is that, there's a lot in today's society to kind of build on the outstanding points that Bill made. It's the fact that we're in one of the most difficult inflection points, I think, in the history of higher education. In so many ways, there are so many things that are being challenged and things that we've taken for granted that are being challenged each and every day. So when you're leading a large, complex university like University of Illinois, you find yourself worrying about issues that run the gamut from how do you erode some of that? How do you help rebuild the confidence in higher education institutions? How do you help defend the value proposition of a college degree and university training, the value that the university brings to bear on research and innovation? Because I think far too often, far too many people in our society don't really understand the three-part mission that we have. They understand that we teach, but they have no clue about how that teaching is interconnected to a research and innovation agenda that gets translated into better outcomes for them and their families. So I worry about losing that land-grant mission and the impact that we've had across the world. And if there's anything that keeps me up is trying to make sure that during my tenure at this university, and when it's time for me to step out of this role and allow for the next leader to come on board, that we really have worked together as a university community to make the place better than it was when I started here in 2016. So to me, I worry about the fundamental issue of whether or not we're making a difference. And to me, that's absolutely critical because we're in such a dynamic space now that just managing around the edges and the status quo is not sufficient. It won't get us to where we need to be. So if anything, that's what I spend my time worrying about, because that's what all of my colleagues, every time we get together at a national meeting, that's all we talk about. It's a set of crises that we have to deal with and how we are going to deal with them in a way that keeps us moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to turn now to some of the questions that have been submitted by members of the audience. A number of questions were submitted in advance, and we're going to start with those. The first one, and this is again for you, Robert, with political pressure from the left and the right calling for universities to limit free speech, how will our university respond to these pressures?
In a very thoughtful way, because this is a specific example of the kinds of things that really do keep me up at night. I think we all would agree that the promotion of open inquiry and free expression is the core value of a university. If you don't have that at a university, then you seek to be relevant to society. And we know far too many examples of around the world where the university academy is the first thing that is being attacked, and that is the first domino to fall that erodes further freedoms and opportunity for citizens. It normally starts at the university level, arresting universities, telling them what they can teach and what they can't teach, telling them what they can study. And to me, that is absolutely critical that we do all we can in this highly politicized, this geopolitical, environment in which we live. We've got to protect that value and do all we can to push against it. And you all know what's going on around the country. People trying to tell you what you can teach and eroding diversity and all kinds of issues that are under attack that were hard-won battles back from the civil rights movement, and it's like we're hit a reset button and we have to start all over again. But this is one where we have to be very clear. We have to speak truth to power, and you can't just acquiesce because of political pressure. We have to really push back and be very clear. And I can tell you one of the things that's going on, this is an ongoing conversation. University of Chicago just had a dialogue about this a couple of months ago. Northwestern is planning one, and there are people that have written about this who are now writing anew, because we all sense that we're at a critical inflection point here, and we can't just sit quietly and think that these geopolitical pressures are going to go away, folks, because they're not. It doesn't matter really who's sitting in the White House or any other house. These things will be persistent unless we can find some way to remind people of our values and to help our next generation of leaders. We've got to teach these values to our students as well.
Thank you. The next question is about mental health. What are we doing as a university to build sufficient capacity to support our students' mental health needs? We regularly hear anecdotal stories from students saying there are not enough counselors and appointments available on campus. Danita, would you like to try and respond to that?
Certainly try. Let's see. Well, our counseling center did launch an online scheduling program which allows our students to schedule appointments 72 hours in advance. And now that doesn't always increase the number of appointments, but it certainly does give a little bit more access to the counseling appointments. There's always 2 triage counselors on staff to deal with emergencies that may come up. We have increased the staff, full-time counselors in the counseling center to 38, and we've included and hired 2 embedded counselors over this last year. It's been very difficult to hire a lot of the embedded counselors just because of market, competition. Folks think that we're in Chicago, but we're really here in Champaign-Urbana. But we have, increased in the McKinley Health Center. We have 4 budgeted psychiatrists. We have our skilled social workers and nurse practitioners. So we have a lot of initiatives that are going on, plus the paraprofessional student outreach that we do, that we give to our students to help them with their mental health, and not just the formal settings of a counseling center, but also throughout, whether it's working with student organizations or just in the residence halls, to really go out and help reach students in a different way to address the mental health concerns.
Thank you, thank you. Next question is for Susan, and it pertains to our aspirational goals in the health sciences as we boldly seek, or that we're boldly seeking to achieve. What would you say some of our aspirational goals are?
And how that was probably the biggest investment that our campus has made in a research initiative, and how much of a difference we can make there. I also think about our partnership with Carl and the founding of the Carl Illinois College of Medicine with a $100 million investment, and how that's bringing a more clinically oriented research base to us. And whenever before have we seen us do this like with SHIELD, where we had some infrastructure and we built out more to make the greatest testing program in the nation during the pandemic. The third thing I'd say is by the work we're doing that's very comprehensive across all of campus and interdisciplinary, how can we democratize healthcare? We need the social and behavioral sciences, we need the engineers, we need chemistry, we need biology. The animal sciences feeds into this, learning how to do this remotely. We could use all corners of campus. So I'd say those are the 3 aspirational goals for health, I'd say, for Boldly, Illinois.
Thank you. The next question pertains to staff and faculty compensation. And perhaps, Bill, you will take this. What is the university doing to ensure that our staff and faculty compensation remains competitive among our Big Ten peers?
Thanks, Wojtek. Compensation levels are something that are top of mind for us and tremendously important. We have wonderful people here. They are the strength of our institution, and we want to make sure that they are appropriately recognized for all of their efforts and that they have every reason to stay here and make Urbana-Champaign their home. There are a number of things that we're doing. When we think about, we'll start with faculty first. We work closely with the deans on identifying and appropriate compensation for their faculty. We have worked with deans to develop equity programs that allow them to address in a proactive manner some of the shortcomings of the salaries, particularly for faculty who are high performers and doing well and contributing to that mission. I know the chancellor's out there lobbying the system and the legislature on a regular basis about faculty compensation and the importance of that, of getting those resources in order to remain competitive and with our Big Ten peers, but competitive nationally. For staff, also, we are concerned about compensation. And this is one of the issues that I think comes out of the pandemic when we think about some of the changes that have happened to our labor market with staff. We now have a number of staff jobs that are in a national labor market. It's not a local labor market, with the ability to work remotely. For some of our IT professionals or budget professionals, they can work remotely and get paid, Bay Area prices, Bay Area wages right here in Urbana-Champaign, and that creates some difficult incentives. Sherry Mickey Boggs, our still new Senior Associate Chancellor for Human Resources, has been working on these issues, working to think about how we can modify our compensation levels so that we can remain competitive in these markets, but also introduce some consistency across the colleges and different units, so we don't have the staff job hopping across units that we have, so that staff can feel more comfortable that they can put down some roots and get promoted with requisite increases and build a career in one place. So we're working hard on these things, and they're difficult issues.
Okay, thank you. We're in our last 10 minutes, so I'm going to try and ask you to be as brief as you can in responding to some of these questions. This one is for you, Barry. What is the update regarding fossil fuel divestment? Is the university on track to be fully divested from fossil fuels by 2025?
Yeah, thanks, Wojtek. It's a good question, and it's one that continues to be asked by not only faculty, but certainly students who have a passion in this space. I guess I'll concentrate first and foremost. There is no disagreement regarding the merits in our collective fight against climate change. I think everybody can agree that the environment is worth protecting. To Bill's comments earlier, I think that there's still space for debate and dialogue about the tools that we utilize to get there. We have engaged with our campus partners at the foundation and certainly the system relative to them managing the endowments, right? And I know they take this responsibility seriously and look forward to continuing those conversations as we move forward.
Thank you. I have a question about China. This was a question submitted from somebody in the audience. I have heard that national security officials have identified many students from mainland China as undercover operatives belonging to the PLA. Will admission of Chinese students be restricted or subjected to more focused scrutiny? And I might ask you to deal with this. Go ahead. Yeah.
Right, okay. Yeah, so there is intense scrutiny on foreign influence from the White House, from the Senate, from the House, and it's bipartisan. We've been dealing with this since I've been in this position for 6 years. As a campus, we've responded in a couple ways. We've set up a disclosure system. This is what they want. They just want these activities with China and other foreign governments to be disclosed. And so we've worked with our community to do this, and I think that we have a pretty good track record. Now, having said all that, there is also a worry about our colleagues from Asian ancestries feeling comfortable and included in their work environments. I've participated in many discussions, including at the national level, where we've talked about these issues. We've worked to make the governments aware, the FBI aware, and other agencies. So it's a work in progress, but I feel like University of Illinois is ahead of the game on disclosing and managing, as well as maintaining a welcoming environment.
Thank you. This question is for Gio and possibly Danita. What are ways that administration have modified institutional policies to respond to derogatory or biased language on the campus?
So In the last 2 years, we have examined how the university responds to concerns of bias. We have set up our campus belonging mechanism, which is designed to focus on a process in which faculty, student, staff can report or provide information about issues or behaviors that impact them negatively, that are perceived to impact them negatively. This new process has allowed us to establish a process in a non-disciplinary way. We also understand that sometimes when some of these reports come to us, we also look at them, and there are instances in which reports have to be sent to the university police department. Let's think about vandalism or something like that. We also work very collaboratively with student affairs and as well as my colleagues in the Office for Access and Equity, because some of these might raise to a level of an investigation, formal or informal. With this new process has allowed us to contact students in less than 48 hours or 2 business days, immediately responding to them. They have the opportunity to meet with us. We have received resources from the campus, and some of our staff have going through training and education. So we're doing also of activities in order to address those issues and also be very proactive in some of the programming that we have done to tackle some of the issues that we have seen that, and connect with our colleagues across campus and let them know, and also having conversations with our senior diversity leaders so they can also provide us with feedback, what else we can do, because they are in the colleges, they are in the units, listen to these things. So having those conversations has helped us to address some of those issues.
Thank you. Danita, anything to add?
I would just add, being here at a public institution, we are bound to uphold the U.S. Constitution and the First Amendment rights, and we do so. And we know that there's protected speech that sometimes is offensive, derogatory, but we do our best to make sure that we are upholding the values and constitutional rights of individuals. But we know when that speech does cross the line, whether it's direct threats or harassment, we do have the student code, and we act very quickly once we are made aware of these issues to hold those parties accountable. And we are looking at ways to make sure that our student code is staying consistent and updated, and also to really highlight and illustrate what we do value here as an institution, and to explicitly state the expectations of all of our students.
Thank you. We have time for just one more question. And this is to you, Mike. Part of the way the campus budget model is structured is supposed to encourage departments to reduce energy usage. Have we seen that happen?
Well, it's a little hard to tell from a numbers perspective right now because of COVID, and a lot of our buildings were not occupied at the time. But I will say that there has been a number of cases where departments or colleges have stepped up and worked with FNS on retro-commissioning projects where they're bringing resources to the table, where we go in, we'll look at a building and replace HVAC, maybe put solar panels on, whatever it might be. We've got a couple buildings that are going to be net zero energy. Some of the new buildings that are coming online, the Skill Building and the Doris Kelly Building, are striving for that. They've also invested in trying to participate in LEED. So our standard is LEED Silver, but up it to gold or platinum. So we're seeing quite a bit more of engagement in our projects from the departments, and working with FNS to do that. They've set up a green research committee to work with the researchers across campus on how to reduce that energy footprint of a lot of that. Eats up a lot of energy. So I would say yes, it's a good sign.
Thank you, thank you. Well, I would like to, first of all, thank the panelists for their responses and for being here. I'd like to thank the audience, both online and in the room, for taking the time. And I'd like to offer Chancellor Jones the opportunity to have the last word.
Well, thank you very much, Wojtek, for serving as the moderator today and keeping everyone on track. So let's give him a round of applause for his taking time out to do this. And certainly, we would have loved to been able to answer all of the questions that were presented to us today, but we certainly hope that the ones that we were able to address, that they were answered in a way that you feel that you have a better understanding of at least where we stand and what we are trying to do as a university to address these critical issues. And as I said, and as you probably saw in the responses, there are so many things that are going on in higher education space that is unlike anything that has occurred in the last few decades, if you will, and so many opportunities, yet so many challenges as well to define a brighter future and for the role that particular land-grant university must continue to have on broader society. So we will continue to press forward, and again, I want to thank all of you for taking time out to be with us today. And I certainly wish you all the best in this finals week that we're in. And I certainly hope to see each and every one of you in Memorial Stadium at commencement in a few weeks. So thank you all. We appreciate your engagement. Thank you.